I just want to show a close-up of the beautiful design. And here is the border. You can see how it has a really pretty border with the braided colors. And this is what the center looks like. You can see the pretty chevrons. Here are the measurements for the blanket. So here is the Afghan that was the inspiration for the design for my baby blanket. You can see the beautiful intricate design, and I'll just give you, it covers my whole table. A lot of work went into this beautiful Afghan, and it was made by Bill, who is Dwight's friend, and I told him that I would use his Afghan for inspiration for my next baby blanket. So this is for Bill. For this project, I used the Rainbow Classic Pearl Essence Everyday The color yarn. Is Rainbow Classic Multi-Pastel. You're going to need 2 skeins of this multicolored yarn to make this baby blanket. I used Pound of Love, and this is a Lion brand yarn. And this color is Antique White. And I only needed 1 skein of this one. And then I only needed, of my pink yarn, I only needed 1 skein of this too. And this one, you could use another Pound of Love, but I used a thicker one that's equivalent to the Red Heart type of yarn. I used my J or 6mm crochet hook, as well as a tapestry needle and a pair of scissors. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to start with one of your colors, the main colors for the blanket, and we're going to do a slip knot. So just take your yarn and just fold it over on itself to form a loop. Then take your crochet hook, go into the loop, and hold the base with your middle finger and your thumb. And then you're going to yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through that loop for a slip knot. And now you're going to make a chain of 137. So 137 chains. That's chain 1, 2, 3, 4. You can see how I'm forming a chain. So you're going to make a chain just like that, and when you have finished making 137, come back and I'll show you what to do next. Now you should have finished your chain of 137. Go ahead and hold that last stitch with your middle finger and your thumb, and we're going to move up to the next row. So you're going to make a chain of 3. 1, 2, 3. That's going to count as your first double crochet for the next row. And now we're going to do a double crochet into the 4th chain from the hook, which is the stitch that you're holding. Go ahead and yarn over, go into the 4th chain from the hook, bring up a loop, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and go through 2, and then yarn over and go through 2. So now we have 2 double crochets that we're going to end with from the beginning, and then also when we're done towards the end. And now you're going to do 1 double crochet into the next 8 stitches. So 1 double crochet into the next 8 stitches. I'm just going to do a couple with you. Let me just untangle. So that was 1. Go into the next stitch. Two double crochet. Do 1 more. Three. So go ahead and finish doing 1 double crochet into 8 stitches and then come back. Now, into the next stitch, you're going to put 5 double crochet into the same stitch. So yarn over, go into the next stitch, make a double crochet. So now you're going to put 4 more into the same stitch for a total of 5. Then you're going to do 1 double crochet into the next 8 stitches. I'm just going to do a couple with you. Go ahead and finish making 1 double crochet into the next 8 stitches. This is how your work should look. You should have finished doing 1 double crochet into 8 stitches. Now we're going to do a decrease stitch. So you're going to yarn over, you're going to go into the next stitch, you're going to bring up a loop, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over and go through 2, then yarn over, go into the next stitch, bring up a loop, 4 loops on the hook, yarn over and go through 2, yarn over, go into the next stitch, bring up a loop, 5 loops on the hook, yarn over and go through 2, yarn over, go into the next stitch, bring up a loop. Now you have 6 loops on the hook, yarn over and go through 2, and then yarn over and go through all 5. Now you're going to do 1 double crochet into the next 8 stitches. Do 1 more with you. So go ahead, do 1 double crochet into the next 8 stitches and then come back. So people always ask me about making their blanket larger. So I just wanted to show you, this is the basic stitches for your basic chevron. So if you're going to be increasing, you're going to need this number of stitches. So here we did 2 stitches on the end, and we're going to have two extra stitches when we finish too. But for the basic chevron, you have 8 stitches, and then you have 8 going down, so that's 16 plus the 1 you did your 5 double crochet into, which is 17, and then you needed 4 for the decrease, so 17, 21, plus 8 is 29. So 29 stitches for your basic chevron. And that is basically what you do. You keep repeating the same pattern for your chevron. So I'm going to do 1 more with you, and then you're going to finish making them all the way across. So I just finished my 8 stitches. So now I'm going to do the top part of the chevron, the point, and that is going to be 5 double crochet into the next stitch. So I'm going to do 5 double crochet into the same stitch to make the point of my chevron. So here you can see I made 5 double crochet into the same stitch. Now I'm going to do 1 double crochet into the next 8 stitches. So I'm just going to do 3 of them with you. So go ahead, finish doing 1 double crochet into the next 8 stitches, and then come back, and then I'll show you how to do the valley. So here you can see how I made the first peak. Here's the valley. We made our second peak. Now I'm going to make the valley with you again. So you're going to yarn over, go into the next stitch, bring up a loop, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over and go through 2. You have 2 loops left on the hook, yarn over, go into the next stitch, bring up a loop, 4 loops on the hook, yarn over and go through 2, yarn over, go into the next stitch, bring up a loop. Now you have 5 loops on your hook, yarn over and go through 2, and then we're going to do 1 more, yarn over, go into the next stitch, bring up a loop, yarn over and go through 2. Now I have 5 loops left on the hook, yarn over and go through all 5 to finish the valley. Now you're going to do 1 double crochet into the next 8 stitches. Now I just want to show you what your chevron should be looking like, and you can see how you're making a really nice chevron design with sharp corners. So you're going up for your peak, down to your valley, up for your peak, down to your valley, and now we're back up to a peak. So I'm going to do this last peak with you. You're going to do 5 double crochet into the same stitch. And then you're going to do 1 double crochet into the next 8 stitches. So I'm going to go ahead and finish these up with you. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So now I'm just going to show you so you can finish making your chevrons all the way across to the other side. So you can see how we initially started with 2 double crochet, and then we started into our pattern of 1 double crochet into 8 stitches, 5 double crochet for the peak, 1 double crochet into 8 stitches. Then we did our decrease stitch for the valley, then 1 double crochet into 8 stitches, and then 5 double crochet into the peak. And you can see how we're repeating the pattern. 1 double crochet into 8 stitches, then you create your valley, 1 double crochet into 8 stitches, and then 5 double crochet into the peak, 1 double crochet into 8 stitches, and now you're going to create your valley. So you're just going to keep doing that all the way across to the end and then come back. So you should have finished with a valley and then 1 double crochet into 10 stitches. Now if you're making the ribbon, the braided ribbon for your blanket, you would finish off here. Just yarn over and pull enough yarn through to bury into your work. You would cut it right here. But if you're making the main chevron for the baby blanket, we're going to continue on, and I'll show you how to do that. Now you're going to make a chain of 3. 1, 2, 3. That's going to count as your first double crochet for the next row. So then just turn your work. And here you can see this is the base of that first chain 3. You're not going to work into that stitch. You're going to be working into the next stitch over. And you're going to do a double crochet into that stitch. So this counts, this first chain 3 counts as your first double crochet, and this is your second double crochet. You're going to finish 1 double crochet into the next 8 stitches. So I'm just going to do 2 more with you. That's 3. 4. Go ahead, finish making 1 double crochet into the next 8, total of 8 stitches. This is 4, so do 4 more and then come back. Now you should have reached your first valley stitch, so we're going to do another decrease stitch over the valley to keep the valley its V shape. So you're just going to yarn over, go into the next stitch, bring up a loop, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over and go through 2, yarn over, go into the next stitch, bring up a loop, yarn over and go through 2, yarn over, go into the next stitch, yarn over and go through 2. You have 4 loops left on the hook, yarn over, go into the next stitch, bring up a loop, yarn over and go through 2. Now you have 5 loops on the hook, yarn over and go through all 5 for your decrease stitch. And you can see how you created your decrease stitch for the valley right over your previous row's valley. And now you're going to do 1 double crochet into the next stitch, and you're going to do 1 double crochet into the next total of 8 stitches. And then you're going to be towards the peak, so you're actually going to have, because you want to go into the center of the peak and do 5 double crochet into the center of that peak. So I'm just going to work that with you. You're actually going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1 double crochet into 10 stitches. And that will bring you to the middle of the peak. So I just want to show you what my work looks like. So you can see how you're creating your beautiful chevron. You're doing your valley over the previous row's valley, and now we're at the next peak, and we're going to do 5 double crochet into the center. Remember, we did 5 double crochet into that 1 stitch. So the center stitch, we're going to do 5 double crochet into that center or 3rd stitch of the peak. Now you're going to do 1 double crochet into the next 8 stitches. And then that should bring you to the next valley. I'm just going to do 4 of them with you. Go ahead and finish your last 4. 1 double crochet in the next 4 stitches. This is how your work should be looking. Now we've reached the next valley. So I'm going to do the decrease stitch with you. Go ahead and yarn over, go into the next stitch, bring up a loop, yarn over and go through 2, yarn over, go into the second stitch, bring up a loop, yarn over and go through 2, yarn over, go into the third stitch, bring up a loop, yarn over and go through 2, yarn over and go into the fourth stitch, bring up a loop, yarn over and go through 2, yarn over and go through 5. Now you're going to do 1 double crochet to the next center peak. So now I've reached the center of my next peak. So remember, there's 5 double crochet into the one stitch on the peak. I want to go into the third stitch of that peak and do 5 double crochet. Five double crochet into the same stitch. So now I just want to show you, you're just going to keep repeating this pattern until you reach the end. So you can see how I'm doing a double crochet until I reach the valley, then I do my decrease stitch, then I reach the peak, do my 5 double crochet into the peak, 1 double crochet into every stitch until the valley, and then same thing. Just keep repeating that all the way to the end and then come back. Then you're going to do 1 double crochet into the next 9 stitches to get to the next valley. So I'm just going to do a couple double crochets with you. So 1 double crochet into the next 9 stitches, and that will take you to the next valley, and then I'll work the valley. Now I did 1 double crochet into 9 stitches, and you can see that I have 2 stitches before I get to the center of my valley. And when you get to that point, you're going to do your next valley. So you just yarn over, go into the next stitch, bring up a loop, yarn over and go through 2, yarn over, go into the second stitch, yarn over and go through 2, yarn over and go into the third stitch, yarn over and go through 2, yarn over and go into the fourth stitch, yarn over and go through 2, and then yarn over and go through all 5 for your decrease stitch. And you can see how each of your stitches lined up over the other, and you're just going to repeat that pattern all the way to the end. So you're going to make 1 double crochet to the center of the next peak, make your 5 double crochet, and then 1 double crochet into every stitch to the next valley. So go ahead, finish making your stitches all the way across to the other side, and then come back. You should be done with 3 rows of your beautiful chevron. So now you can go ahead and finish off. So you just yarn over and pull just enough yarn through to bury into your work. For my chevrons, you can see how I alternated between the rainbow color and my antique white and just alternated them. And what you do is you just line them up, your chevrons. When you're finished making a chevron, just line it up at the end of your blanket, and make sure that when you line them up, the side that you're going to be sewing on, that you always sew your work together on the same side, because it creates just a little bit of a ridge on your crochet work. So then once you have it lined up, and it's not going to match up exactly to the end, there's always going to be a little bit of a gap, so you just want to line up the peak of the one side with the valley on the other side. And then once you do that, you take your tapestry needle, and in this case I'm using my antique white yarn, and I'm just going to sew the 2 pieces together. Make sure that you leave plenty of loose yarn end for burying into your work, and then you're going to grab the edge of the chevron that you just finished, and you can go ahead and tie a knot. I like to tie it 3 times just to make sure it's nice and secure. So you can see that the one edge of my previous row's chevron, that I have about 1, 2, 3, 4, about 5 stitches free. And now I'm just going to take and sew my new chevron in place. So I just grab the stitch of the previous row's chevron and then the stitch on my new chevron and sew them together. And I just go in and out. And just sew the 2 pieces together. And you can see how it makes a nice little ridge. So I'm just going back and forth. So if I come out on this side, then I'm going to go back in the other side. And you're just going to keep sewing all the way to the other side and then come back. Now you can see what it looks like when you reach the other side. And then you're just going to take any loose yarn ends and place them onto your tapestry needle. And what I do is I just go in and out, weaving my loose yarn end into the blanket. And then once you've weaved it through, you can just go through with your tapestry needle just like that. Just bring your loose yarn end through, and then you just cut it. Go ahead and bury all of your loose yarn ends and then come back. For my blanket, I had 16 chevrons. Now I'm going to show you how to make the braided rainbow. And I'm going to make mine for the border. So you're going to need 4 of them. But if you like your baby blanket to be made of strips of these, then all you do is just sew them together just like we did our chevrons. You would sew them with your tapestry needle, just sew them together. But for mine, I'm just going to show you how to make 4 of them for a border. You should have 3 chevrons completed, 1 of each color that you want for your baby blanket. And now I'm going to show you how to sew them together to form a braid. The first thing you're going to do is take one of your colors so that the peak is pointing to the left, and then take another color and turn it so that the peak is pointing to the right. And then you're going to take your loose yarn end and you're going to sew the end of one of your colors to the end of the other chevron. And just sew them together. You can just leave the loose yarn ends for now, because we can bury them after we're done. And then I'm just going to tie a knot after I finish sewing them together. And then just leave the loose yarn ends. And you can see how I sewed the one side to the other color. And now you're going to get your third color. And you're going to place the chevron on the other side. So you go underneath your one color that you just had pointing to the left. And then you're going to take the loose yarn ends of your new or third color and you're going to sew it to the middle portion of this one other side. And if you don't have enough of a loose yarn end to sew it, you can just get some of your third color yarn color and put it onto your tapestry needle to finish sewing it together. And just take and sew the pieces together. And I'm just going to tie a knot with my loose yarn end. So you can see how I have the three colors right now. So I have the one color pointing, the peak is pointing to the left. I have the other color where I sewed it to the end of that strip, and this peak is pointing to the opposite direction. And then I'm taking my third color and sewing the end where the peak is still pointing in the same direction as your other color, and make sure it goes underneath that peak. Now you're going to grab the color of yarn that you want to have for the border, and I'm using my rainbow color, and you're going to go to the peak, go to the point of the peak to join. Make sure you leave a long loose yarn end for tying a knot and burying into your work, and then do a chain one, and then you can tie a knot. Now you're going to take any loose yarn ends and we're going to bury them as we work around the border. So you're going to take your crochet hook and go into the next stitch, go behind the loose yarn end, bring up a loop. You have two loops on the hook, yarn over and go through both for a single crochet, and then you're going to do a single crochet into every stitch down. At the same time, I'm burying my loose yarn end. So I'm doing a single crochet into every stitch all the way down. And at the same time, I'm burying the loose yarn end so I don't have to do it later. Now as I'm working down, I'm running into some more loose yarn ends, so I'm going to go behind those loose yarn ends to bury them as I do one single crochet into every stitch. Now here you have the one strip that's going down this direction, so you have a double crochet that you're going to work underneath. So go with your crochet hook, go underneath that double crochet and behind your loose yarn ends. Bring up a loop, do a single crochet. You're going to do two single crochet in the same space, and then you're going to be turning and starting to work up the other side. So go into the next space behind your loose yarn ends, bring up a loop, 2 loops on the hook, yarn over and go through both for a single crochet, and then you're going to work up the other side and do a single crochet into every stitch up the other side. And so I think I've buried my loose yarn ends enough, so I'm going to go ahead and cut these loose yarn ends. And you can see how my work is looking. I'm doing a single crochet down the one side and going up the other side until I reach the peak, the point of the peak. Now, when you reach the point, have one more stitch. So I've reached the peak. Just show you. So here, you can see and you want to have the pink go under. So you can see how you start to braid your work. You're making a braid. So you're going to be alternating colors. So now, after I finish doing a single crochet into the peak, I'm going to chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Then you're going to find the peak of your next color, which is going to be the beige or the antique white. So you can see how the chevron goes, here's the peak, and then it goes under the rainbow to line up with the rainbow's peak. So after your chain 6, you're going to go to the tip of the antique white color or beige color, and you're going to make a single crochet. Then you're going to chain 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we already did the peak of the rainbow, the peak of the beige. Now we're doing the peak of the pink. And you're just going to keep alternating those colors and chaining 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And at the same time, you're going to be braiding so that the peaks will line up. So now you just braid and make sure that your chevrons lay flat. And the next color is going to be the rainbow. So you just form the chevron or the peak so that the next one will line up. And then you take and make a single crochet into the peak. Then chain 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the next color is going to be the beige. So you're just going to take and line up the chevron and make your braid. Make sure that your braid is lying flat. It's not getting curled. And then you're just going to take and make a single crochet in the peak. And you're going to keep doing this all the way down to the other end and then come back. Now when you reach the bottom of the braid, it should all line up the same as how you started. You're going to sew together the one, here you have a peak pointing to the left, and then you have another color peak pointing to the right. And you're just going to line up the two edges and sew them together. So I'm just going to take my loose yarn end and go back to the starting loose yarn end. And then you can tie another knot too if you want it to really be secure. Then you have your middle color that you're going to sew. And I'm just going to take my tapestry needle because I'm going to go to the center. And you're going to sew your third color to the center of this strip. And then just sew that piece together. And you can see how I sewed it right to the center. And then I'm just going to take my loose yarn end, make sure it's sewn on snugly. And then once I'm sure it's sewn on well, I'm just going to take and weave my yarn back across. So I can tie a knot. And then you can take and bury your loose yarn end. Just kind of weave the loose yarn end through your work. And so this is how your work should end on the other side. So if it doesn't match up like this on the other side, then you need to check your braid. And you can see how I alternated colors. So I have the pink, then the beige, then I have the rainbow, and then it repeats pink, beige, rainbow all the way. And you can see how I have a pretty braid also all the way up. Everything lies flat, nothing is twisted, all the way back up towards the top. So now, once you've finished doing that, then you can take and finish making your single crochets. So here at the peak of my the last peak, I'm going to do another single crochet into the same space before I turn, and do one single crochet down the side of one of the color strips at the bottom. So I'm at the bottom and I'm doing one single crochet into every stitch down along the side. And again, you're going to run into the end where you have a double crochet. So you're going to go into that space under the double crochet, and you're going to work 3 single crochet into that space. And then you're going to turn your work and start working up along the other side. So you can see how I worked a single crochet all the way down to the point. I did 3 single crochet in that space. Now I'm turning to do a single crochet into every stitch back up until I reach the peak. And then I'm going to make a single crochet into the peak stitch. So this is the center of the peak. I did my last single crochet in that stitch, and this is what it looks like so far. So I went all the way down, around, and back up to the peak. Now I'm going to make a chain of 6 just like I did on the other side. And this side is easier because it's already braided. So all you have to do is go into the peak of the next peak, color peak. In this case, I started with the rainbow peak. Now I'm in the pink peak, so the next one would be the antique white or the beige. So chain 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you go into the peak of the next color, do a single crochet, and you can see how you're joining the other side, just like you did on the opposite side. So chain 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you go into the peak of the next color and make a single crochet. So go ahead and repeat that all the way down back to the other side, and then I just made my last single crochet in my last peak, and then I chained 6. Now I'm going to join to my first single crochet. So I'm going to go into that first single crochet I made. I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to bring the yarn through both loops on my hook for a slip stitch. And then I'm going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And we're going to do our last round, but I just want to show you how it looks. So you can see how we went on both sides, and we joined all of the peaks down the side, and you have a pretty flat braid down the center. So now you're just going to take and do a double crochet. So yarn over, go into the next stitch, bring up a loop, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over and go through 2, and yarn over and go through 2. You're going to do 1 double crochet into every stitch all the way around. When you get to the first chain 6, come back and I'll show you what to do. When you get to the corner stitches, actually I'll just work it with you so I can show you what to do with the corner stitch. So 1 double crochet, when you reach the tip here, you want to do 2 double crochet into the next 2 stitches, and that'll help keep the tip from curling up. So you can see how you're able to turn the corner. And then you're going to do 1 double crochet to the first chain 6, and then come back. So you can see how my double crochets look all across the top and around the corner, and now I've made it to my first chain 6 loop. So I'm going to do 6 double crochet into that space. So you're going right into that space and bringing up a loop, making a double crochet, and you're making 6 of them. And then you're going to do a double crochet into the peak, that single crochet that you made at the peak, and do 1 single double crochet right in the peak, and then you're doing 6 double crochet into the next chain 6 space, and you're going to do that all the way around back to where you started. And this is what it'll look like. So go ahead, finish doing that all the way around back to the beginning, and then once you're back to the first double crochet, you're going to do a slip stitch into the top stitch. So take your crochet hook, go into that top stitch, then you're going to yarn over and pull the yarn through both loops on the hook for a slip stitch. And then you're going to finish off, just yarn over and pull enough yarn through to bury into your work. Now you're just going to get your tapestry needle. Just put it onto your loose yarn ends. And then you're just going to bury them into your work. So you just kind of weave your tapestry needle in and out, and then just kind of bury it into your work. And then once it's buried, just take and cut your loose yarn ends, and then come back. Now I laid out my blanket flat, and I just used my table to lay it down, and then I'm placing the border all around. And then once I have the border in place, I'm going to sew it with my tapestry needle. Now I'm just going to show you how I sewed one of the borders on. So I took the border and just laid it, here's the bottom part of the chevron. You just lay your braided border down, and you're going to sew with your tapestry needle. Just take the colored yarn that you want to use for sewing, and then you're just going to go in and out, sewing the border to the blanket. And I'm lining up the border with the chevron. So I'm covering that chevron, and that's how I'm lining it up. If it's easier for you, then you can use pins to help hold it, but I found that as I sew, I'm just lining it up with the peak here. Actually, these are the valleys of the chevron, but it looks like the peak of a triangle. So I'm just lining them up as I sew, and I'm just going in and out of the blanket, sewing it in place. And make sure on the other side that your stitches are lying flat on the opposite side, and you just keep going. Take small stitches and just keep going in and out. As you sew across, and you can see how I'm lining up the top here. And I'm just going in and out and sewing my border in place. So go ahead and start sewing yours in place, and when I reach the end, I'm going to show you how I sew the ends together. I've reached a corner, so I'm going to match up the two ends and make sure you have enough of the new border to overlap the chevron baby blanket, and then you want to match the sides so that the corners, you're not going to fold them completely together, but you're going to start sewing them close together. And then what you're going to do is just take your tapestry needle, and you want to take the corner of your chevron baby blanket, and then make sure that, like I said, that you're overlapping, covering the ends of the chevrons, and then grab part of the new border with your tapestry needle, and then you're just going to sew the ends together. You want to make sure that there's no gap here in the corner where the two borders meet the baby blanket. And then you're just going to take your tapestry needle and you're going to go back and forth on the stitches of the ends of the borders. And you're just going to start sewing the ends together. You can see how I'm grabbing the stitches, one stitch from each border, and I'm just sewing them together on the ends. And you want to make sure that you leave the same amount of gap on each corner. And this is about the same gap that I left on the other corner. So now I'm just going to take my tapestry needle. Since I'm almost done, I'm going to need a new yarn to sew. I'm just going to take it back to where I already have a loose yarn end so I can tie a knot. Just makes your blanket more secure. So this is how you sew your borders on your chevron blanket. And when you're done, go ahead and bury all of your loose yarn ends, and then come back and we'll see your finished product.